Hey there YouTube, Arvin69 here. Yep, as you probably guessed today, we're going to look at some retro kit. I've done a couple of vids in the past on my channel modifying retro kit. I've done recapping and screen mods on an original Game Boy. Today we're going to look at the Game Boy Color. Now, I have an original one of these that's in much better nick than this one is. I've been looking for a donor console that didn't cost a fortune for quite some time, and I finally found one. So I've gone ahead and I've bought the IPS kit from Retro Mod, and I'll link that down in the description below. So today we're going to look at taking this apart and how to install the IPS kit from Retro Mod. So without further ado, let's dive in. So this is everything we've got. This is my original Game Boy with a copy of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer inside it. What I have bought, I've bought a brand new shell because we need to modify this shell to get the new screen in, and I didn't want to hack apart an original Game Boy shell. So we have a replacement shell. Came with this screen cover. It's a plastic one, however I've bought this glass one that actually fits the IPS mod because the screen is slightly larger. Hopefully you will be able to see, but there is definite a size difference in visible area on these screens. The shell came with a set of black buttons, however I wanted to go black and blue, so I've bought some blue silicone and some blue buttons. Also you get with the IPS kit is the screen, the ribbon cable to connect it with, and these 3D printed alignment parts. Now I didn't bother buying the screen cutting guide, which is this orange part here. I'll just dig this out, because I own a 3D printer, so the files are available on Retro Modding's website to download these as well as these. So if you do break them, don't worry, you can print some more if you've got a printer. So without further ado, we'll have a look at this Game Boy and we'll just double check it all works fine, and then we will dig into opening this up and checking the actual IPS kit works. So here's the Game Boy. As you can see, it fires up. The quality of the original screens, there's a rumble pack kicking in, was absolutely terrible. The brightness was abysmal on these. As you can see, it is in colour. I'll just turn that volume down. You can see it is in colour, but the screens were not the best. So we're going to check this out and change it with an IPS screen. So what I'll do is we'll turn it off, flip it over, and we'll start to take it apart. So first thing we need to do is take out the batteries, 1 and 2. And then there are 2, 4 and 2 in the back there, down there, T-wing Nintendo screws. So grab your screwdriver bit and proceed to take those out. So with the last screw removed, we can tease the back off this. This has never been open in God knows how long, so honestly I haven't even cleaned this one because I knew I wasn't keeping the shell, so if there is grime in here I do apologise. This is not coming apart very easily. Oh, that socket doesn't look very good. There we go. So I'll take that back off. And there we are. There is some slight corrosion on this socket. We might clean that up. The board itself looks in fairly good condition. Nothing too much to worry about there on that board. So what I'll do is, next thing to do is there are 1, 2 and 3 screws holding the board in. So there's 1, 2 and 3. I'll go ahead and take those out and then we can remove this board. So with those removed, we can now carefully lift out the board. Oops. And now we have access to the reverse side of the board. So we'll take the power button out, put that to one side, as I'll put that back in the original case later. Now, because we're not going to be using this shell or the screen or anything else in this, we're only interested in the board. I'm going to flip this back over again, and at the very top, either side of this connector, there are 2 little grey tabs. If we just carefully push those up, like so, and then we should be able to lift this board up and ever so carefully wiggle this cable out, like so. And now we don't need that anymore. This is the old shell. So put this and its back counterpart and the button to one side, and we'll have a look at the board. So the board itself on the whole is actually fairly clean, fairly neat. Like I say, I'm going to give this a little scrape and clean this up a little bit. The bottom part of the board's not too bad. If you flip it over, that all seems fairly reasonable and fairly good. So I'll be back in a second once I've just scraped this with a pair of tweezers or something just to clean up a little bit. So with that scraped off, any of the loose cleaned off it, it's not brilliant. First thing we want to do is connect the IPS screen up to this and just turn it on to test to see if it works. Make sure everything's fine before we go ahead and make any more solder connections. So the first thing we need to do is inside this bag, we've got the circuit board. We need to take this out. Now this is the, oops, see if I can get you clean. This is the FunnyPlaying kit. I've got revision 2.2 of the actual board. There we are, revision 2.2 of the board. On this ribbon cable, if we turn it round, there is a start and a select point. So we've got the start and the select point. Those need to be soldered to the board later on, which allow you access to the screen modes, and I think it's just the screen modes on this one. You don't have to solder them if you don't want to, it's optional. I am going to do that. On the back of the board, we've got a solder point for, that's the touch sensor on this side, and on this side is the power. Now the power has to be connected before the screen will actually work. So the first thing we need to do is, with the gold pins pointing up over, oops, pop that into there and then push down on both pins at the same time at the side to lock that cable in place, like so. With that in place, the screen itself, be very, very gentle with the screens, they are delicate. Inside here we've got the IPS screen and a 3M adhesive to hold it in place. Not sure if I'll be using that. Now on these, there is a push connector just here at the side, and that connects to the other push connector there, and they just clip together. So I'm going to go ahead and get my soldering iron out ready, and we need to connect, let's get the tweezers. We need to connect the power pin here over to C1 on the actual power switch of the actual Nintendo Game Boy Color. So I'm going to fire my soldering iron up and we'll get one of these wires soldered on. So inside the bag that the circuit board came in, there are a couple of wires, oops, including this touch sensor. We're going to use the blue wire. I don't know if it's going to be the same across all of them. It is the shortest wire in there. We'll just pop this touch sensor back, we'll get back to that later. And this is the wire I'm going to use to connect from power here to C1 on the actual power switch on the Game Boy Color. So first thing we need to do is put some solder onto this power. Now my soldering iron is nice and hot. So we will go ahead. I'm using a very, very fine nib on mine, as I know that is going to be needed later. I'll get some solder on this. Right, let's tin this up. Now, my soldering skills are not the best. As you can see, I completely failed on that one. There we go. Try and add a little bit of solder to C1. There we go. Right, now then, let's get this soldered on here. My hands are not the steadiest. Damn. It's soldered on, but it's not very good. So, let me redo that again. Right, there's that soldered on. Ended up using a little bit of flux there. Let's bend this round. Oops. And get you soldered onto C1. That is soldered on both. So now with that done, let's pop this back into the back part of the shell. That way around, like so. So off is the down position. Now with the screen, don't apply pressure to these screens, they are very, very delicate. So what we'll do is we'll offer it up to this little clip in the top corner there, marry it up with the little pins on the back. Once it locates, just gently press it together. Like so, you'll hear a slight click. And that is that connected. Now we'll pop some batteries in at the back. 1 and 2. And we shall turn it on and keep our fingers crossed. Something's not right. Okay, so we're back. It turns out that there was nothing wrong with the soldering or the wiring I've done. The problem was the actual batteries I was using. They were old batteries and obviously didn't have enough power to power this. With using the new IPS screen, it draws a lot more power, so make sure you have batteries that are either brand new or very well charged. I've had to run around the house looking for a set of rechargeable batteries that were charged. I found some, so we power it on, and there we go. We get a Game Boy, very, very bright, much better improved screen. So now we're going to power it off, take it out of the shell, and we're going to wire up the start and select, and then get this put in along with the touch sensor. So I'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, I actually forgot before we wire those up, where the cartridge fits into the actual Game Boy on the reverse side, you'll see there are a number of pins that sit quite proud to the board just along here. These do need to be trimmed, so you will need a set of flush cuts, which I happen to have on the floor down here. And what we need to do is just go through and very, very carefully trim the top of each one of those off so they sit flush to the board. So I'm going to go through and trim all those, and I'll be back in a bit. So with those pins now cut, they are now flush to the board, across there. We will eventually be putting some Captain tape on, which is, oops, stuck to it, this gold colour tape that I have, which is a very, very good insulator. But we need to solder up the start and select. Now I've got my trusty, very old multimeter here. We put this in continuity mode, so when the wires get crossed, when you cross the pins, you get a nice high pitched beep. Now, the select button up here, which is completely out of frame, so the select pad up here needs to get connected to select down on this board. Now, I'll just move that out of the way a second. For the select, you can use P12, which is just above the select button here. So if we put that on there and we connect that to P12, there we are. We get a tone. However, there is a cluster of pins up the top here. If you're looking at where the ones we've just trimmed, beside pin number 32, you'll find a bottom one there, and that one will actually work just as well, and that's where I'm going to solder my wire to, from the select up the top here down to there. So as I said, from here to here, P12 you can use, but I am going to use up the top here this pin just there, as that one works, and that gets soldered to the select pad down on this ribbon cable down here. So let's get this soldered up. So where's my flux pen gone? There it is. Done it again, put flux everywhere. I'm just going to put a bit of flux on the select pad here and a bit of flux up on that. Get my soldering iron nice and hot. So we'll come in and we will tin this pad. Like so. And then we're going to come in and get some solder into this hole. Like so. So now we take one of these white wires that came with the kit and we just attach that. Yeah, we'll attach it this way. My fingers might get in the way of this, unfortunately, sorry about this. But we'll attach that onto the select pin. Okay, always double check what you're doing, because I've just realised I have actually tinned up the start pin by accident. So I will go ahead and pop some solder on this select pin as well now. Always pay attention to what you're doing. There we are. Right, so now we'll solder this select wire on. Like so. Give it a tug, make sure that's connected, and then we're going to solder it into this pin down here. Like so. So that's that one on. Now we need to repeat the same process for the start to find the ground point on that one. So the start button just here, and find the ground point for that. So for the start button, from start here you can use P13 just above it, or because we've got such a long wire, you can use as a cluster of 3, or further up there is a cluster, there's a pin up here you can use. So I'm going to use this one down here. I'll take a closer look to show you which pins we're talking about, just to make sure you get an idea. So from start to pin 13 just here, or if you come further up the board, there is a number of 3 pins just here underneath this stamped number, and it's this one here you want to use. So because I've already tinned the start one, which I did by accident first, get my flux pen, we'll just pop a bit of flux onto that pin, and now we will try with my very bad soldering skills to get some solder into that hole. like so. Right, now with the wire, we're going to do the same again onto the start pin, and we'll solder this wire onto that. There's that, and then round here, and we will drop that into the one we have just soldered down here. So again, my hands might be in the way of this. I don't know if I can turn this around and do it this way. And that's now connected. Yep, and yep. So that's all them connections done. The next thing I'm going to do is across here put a bit of Captain tape to secure that in, and across there put some Captain tape to make sure nothing shorts on those connections. So with that done, what we can do now is just to make sure we've made no cock-ups. We can put this back into the shell, and we'll just fire up the Game Boy once again to make sure that everything is working. So if we get that in there, come on, in you go, like so. Get the screen, and as before, pins to pins, line them up, and don't press on the screen but press on the pins only. And you'll feel a little click, and that's that connected. I'll go ahead and put my batteries in, make sure that's in the off position. Down is off. So let's get these batteries in. Oops. 1 and 2. If we power that on, we should get Game Boy screen. There we go. Everything still works as we'd expect. So I've just rested the rubber start and select things on the things on here. So if we press both of those, whoops. I'm not getting these right. It's quite hard to do, but there we can see. Hopefully you can see the screen's changed. There we go. This is very hard to do without the whole case being together. Well, I've managed to change it to a different mode. It does work. It's very hard to do without the screen, without the front being attached on it. Rocks too much, but that seems to be working. So we're going to power that off, and now we're going to move on to the actual trimming of the shell, etc. Right, so the front part of the replacement case I bought, this screen, as I said before, is way too big to fit in there. So what we need to do is trim this, whoops, there we are. So trim this, this, and this off the actual Game Boy. Now, we did get a set of 3D printed parts with the kit, and these, once you've trimmed, help align the case. Now these go, this flat piece goes at the top here, like so. I believe this one goes either that way or the other way around against this power button. I think it's that way. And then this one goes up against here, and that helps you align the center of the screen. So when we do trim, don't trim this very, very top piece just up here. So we can see there. So this very top piece up here, don't trim that. So the easiest thing to do is we can get a craft knife and score on the insides down here, down here, down here, then eventually twist and break it off. So I have my scalpel set that I use for crafting and stuff. I'm simply just going to pop it in, oops, and try and keep it flat as possible and score all the way down there. Now you can use a rotary tool for this. There we go. Just remember, if you're going to use a rotary tool, go slow with it, as you stand a chance of burning the plastic. And that's not what we want to do. So I've got quite a few good scores into that. Next thing we can do is, I've got a flat blade, we can use this to go straight down here and separate that away. Like so, and then up here as well, straight down to the corner, and then we will hopefully be able to bend this out and bend it off. Actually, I'm going to get my needle nose pliers, I'll be back in 2 seconds. There we are. There's my needle nose pliers, so simply just pop them in and start to work along like so. And if you've scored far enough down, it will come away like so, right at the base. I'm going to repeat this process all the way around, and I'll come back to you once I have finished. Okay, so that is the inner shell cut out for this one. Now, I will warn you now, this did take me a while. What I will suggest is take your time over it, go slow, and make sure you get these cut nice and flush. If you have to go over and just gently scrape away a little bit more, by all means, keep doing it. But please take your time over this stage. It is critical you get this right. Now then, that's what mine now looks like with those inner bevels cut off around here. If we can see up the top here, the 3 little pins that are in there that hold the IR sensor, the little bar at the top here, you need to cut those 3 pins at the same height as this bar. Don't cut them all the way off, or you will regret it when you're trying to fit your IR sensor. So as you can see, this original bar, if I just get my tweezers again, fat fingers are not in the way. So this original bar here is still intact, and there's the nubs of the 3 pins up here. Now, reason being for this is the 3D printer parts you've got, there's a flat piece like that. It has a larger, thicker side. That fits in just up there like so. You get another one shaped like, whoops, like this. That one fits in around that. Now you will probably notice at this point, this where the LED sits for the power has been trimmed off slightly because it does sit right out here, and unfortunately the screen needs to go to this point. So when you're doing this, make a note of that. And the last one, shaped like such, goes around the power button like, have I got it upside down? No, like that. So with those 3 in, you can see we've got 1, 2 and 3, and now the screen sits inside that, and that aligns the screen to the top and sides perfectly, allowing you to get the screen in correctly. Now there is a protective film on the front of the screen. Don't take it off until you're ready to install the screen, but when you put it in, it sits in something like, it's very hard to do when I'm holding it, up to there, and then just pops in like so. And that, whoops, that way around, there, and that aligns that screen perfectly in the center. Now the next thing we need to do, if I turn this over, don't worry too much about any marks you make here, because this will be covered by the actual screen. Now the aperture that's left is actually too small for this IPS mod, and that is where this comes in, the part I printed. This fits inside here, and that marks out what you need to cut. Now don't worry if you cut a little bit too much, because the glass screen protector that you put on has some black bezels and does allow for a little bit of leeway. If you make an error cutting this when it goes in, it will hide some discretions. So I'm going to take the screen out and we'll get to cutting the outside shell. So with that piece in place, I've got a pen somewhere just down here. Now I'm just going to hold it in place and mark along there, there, there and there. There we go. So when I remove this, we will hopefully have a faint line. Very faint, but yes, I can just to say see marks along there of where this is. Now again, what we need to do is get our scalpel and run it along those lines, scoring in 3 or 4, maybe 8 times, and then with a pair of needle nose pliers carefully breaking it off. Don't worry if it goes a bit too deep, as long as you don't go right to the very edge here, or here, or here. you will have a bit of leeway, like I said, because the bezels on the glass screen will protect it. So I'm going to make a start on this, and I'll get back to you once I'm finished, because this is probably going to take a bit of time. Okay, so I've now cut this out. We have an absolute ton of plastic shards from where I have trimmed. There is a lot to be trimmed on this. Like I said before, the original Game Boy Color screen, if you can actually see there, the bezels are a lot thicker on this one than they are on that. And the side bezels, for instance, there, we can see. So we do need a large aperture. Now that's been cut. What I've done is you've rest it in place, flip it over. On the inside here, you should see the score marks of where the middle of the screen is. What you're ideally looking for is your cut lines to be on the outside of those. Don't worry if it's too big, bigger is better, as you won't see anything of that once the screen's in place. So the next thing to do will be peel the sticky off the back of this and stick the screen protector. Leave the cellophane on the outside. So take that off there, put that to one side, as I'm going to use the sticky of that bit in the middle in a minute. There's a pull tab on the side here. If we can get hold of that and try and peel that off, like so. And before I stick it in, I am going to try and get this middle bit off. There we are. And then carefully, I'm going to do this facing me so I can see what I'm doing. If we just carefully offer this up into place, like so, and stick that down there. So that is now stuck, and we are ready to start to assemble the actual Game Boy itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our plastic aligner pieces, and we're going to put those back in where they should go. Drop them in. Now, when doing the screen and putting it in, do take your time, don't rush. Make sure you get everything in the right way where it should be. So I'm going to take my Game Boy Color out of the back housing. I'm going to leave the screen protector on for the moment and connect the screen back up again by, oops, if I can just show you here. So aligning the pins once again, and just without pressing on the screen, just the pins only. Come on. There we go. And click those into position. Right, now we've got to put this into this and get the screen lined up correctly. The part I am not looking forward to. So to make sure we're going to get this in the right way, what I'm going to do is that is eventually going to fold over like that. That's going to fold over like that, and that's going to be the correct orientation for the screen. So that goes in like that. Once we've got it in roughly the right place, we can just unfold everything, and making a note, we know the pink tab goes, sorry, slightly off centered here, so we know the pink tab of this faces off this side. So we can now undo the screen. We can now peel the protector off, make sure your hands are clean and everything is good. All these pieces are in place, make sure. And then peel the protector off, make sure you made a note that's on this corner, so it's going to go in that way around. And offer that up inside there. Come on. That's it. Down it goes. There. So there we are, and if we flip it over, that's fell out, but we can see that the screen looks good. We can't see any bezel, we can't see any issues, all we can see is the screen. You know what? I'm going to leave that piece out. it keeps falling out, the screen's in place and it is ready to go. So next what we need to do, connect the screen back up to the board by ever so carefully just connecting that onto there. Yes, it's going to be a bit fiddly to do, but again, just take your time and connect. So there we are, that's that connected. So we're going to fold that over, and that's going to sit like that. Now then, if we have a look underneath, we will see that some of that is going to rest on the circuit board there. So what I'm going to do, I am going to get my Captain tape, and I am going to cover all of this with Captain tape, just to make sure nothing shorts out. So there we are, that is now all captained up. It might not be 100% necessary, but I'd rather not take the chance of anything shorting. So now what we'll do is we'll carefully fold this over, drop that in place. Yes, that seems to fit nicely. So take it off, and next thing we need to do is pop the buttons back in here. Now, as I said, I've got some blue silicone pads and blue buttons. So I will quickly pop these into the case. So pop the D-pad in there and get the silicone on that. Like so. Then and we've got A button that goes in there like that, B button that goes in there like that. That silicone pad goes over there, and the start and select buttons go in there. And then now we can fold that over, drop the speaker in place. Sorry if I'm being off shot there a little bit there. Pull that cable up a little bit further. It seems to be bent a little bit tight. Right. What's stopping this going down? And there we are. That's in place. So the next thing to do is, yep, that seems right. Pop the 3 screws back in the bottom to hold it in place. Okay, while putting it together, I noticed I had a bit of dust underneath the screen here, so I've taken it to pieces and removed that dust. But I was having problems putting the original crosshead screws back into here. I did completely forget that when you buy this kit, you get a bag of new screws, and these new screws fit a lot better in this aftermarket shell than the original ones do. They must be either a little bit smaller or a little bit thinner or something, but they fit so much better and went in so much easier. So now that's been folded, put back in and screwed in. The next thing we need to do is wire the touch sensor up. So we're going to need to solder this touch sensor. It's not necessary, you don't have to, same with the start and select buttons, but this simply gets soldered onto there like that, sorry, whoops, and then twisted round and stuck on the shell there. You can put it behind the IR light if you want to, but I'm going to put mine there, and I'm going to use, which I'm sticking to everything, this bit that we peeled off. Yeah, this bit that we peeled off the inner bit of the screen protector, I'm going to stick the pad to that. So I'm going to prep some of this and get the soldering iron heated up, and we'll be back in a second. So now my soldering iron's hot. The first thing we're going to do is get our little touch sensor and the backing that we peeled off the screen protector, and I'm going to stick that onto the edge, just like that. Stick that down and then cut that out. Now the reason for doing this is this touch sensor is supposed to go on the edge of the shell itself. So to stop it moving about, I'm going to use that double-sided tape we've just put on there to adhere it to the shell. Now then, what we need to do next is this little touchpad here. We need to drop some solder on, so I'm going to get my flux pen, shake it before taking the cap off this time. Drop a little bit of flux onto that, get my solder, and with my really soldering skills, pardon my French, solder this on. There we go. Then we're going to lose the touch sensor because I put it down, I don't know where it is. There it is. Now we're just going to drop that on top and solder that in place there. Like so. And that is the touch sensor soldered in place, and that gets bent and stuck. I'll just get my tweezers, my fingers out of the way. Gets bent and stuck just on the top of the shell somewhere like that. There, that's slightly better. So I can just show you here. It's not perfect, it's not brilliant, it is at a slight angle. Just put a bit of kink in that cable, get that squared up. So there we are. So that's the touch sensor on. Now what we need to do is put the back of the Game Boy back on top, offer it up. I've already fitted the IR sensor. Oops, almost forgot the power slider. Forgot to put the power button in there, so we'll just get that dropped back in. There we go, like so. And now we'll put the back on like that. Make sure everything lines up correctly. So with the back on, I'll now put the screws in. The tri-way ones, the new ones that came with the kit I bought, and then I'll get back to you once the screws are all in and we'll test it out. So that's all the screws put back in now. So the next thing to do is take off the plastic cover that protected the glass screen protector we've got in there. If we drop a couple of batteries in and we just fire it up without any gaming at all, we'll see a very, very nice bright Game Boy screen. Now the touch sensor, which we can just see through the case there at the top, if we tap it, one, goes darker, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back up to full brightness. The start and select, I found they're a bit finicky and I don't like the modes, but they're there if I want them. Just try and get these. There we go. So there's like a scan line mode. Try and get the next one on there. I'm not sure what that one is. There's another one. There we go. That, which is quite dark with scan lines down vertical. That one seems to be brighter. That one's got a cross-hatch pattern on it. I don't know if they'll pick up on the camera at all or not. And that's back to normal, which is by far my favourite. So we're going to power this off. We'll pop in Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Oops. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Pop that in and then we will fire this up. And there we are. A much, much brighter, clearer and easier to see screen. So there we are. We'll just knock this volume down. There we go. So there we are. So if I can just, we'll choose Anakin. We'll choose that. We'll start that. Get on with it. There we are. Much, much clearer. You know what it is? I can't even see what I'm doing because I'm looking at this with the camera lens. There's 2, 1. Whoops. Oh god, this is really, really hard to play like this. But you get the idea. It's a much, much clearer screen to see. Oops, corner that way. I'm going to go and see if I've got any more Game Boy games to test. Back in a second. Okay, I've just grabbed that in my collection. Emergency Patrol. Pop that in. There is no rumble pack for this one at least. I'll fire it up. And there we are, a much clearer, brighter screen. Emergency Patrol. I think it was the Matchbox, is it? Yeah, Matchbox game. Wasn't very good, this, to be honest with you. But there we are. Much, much clearer and easier to see. And all I'll do is I'll get some side-by-side comparisons on this, so we can see... how'd you go forwards? How the hell did you go forwards? Oh, that was it. So there we are. I'll get some side-by-side comparisons, and we'll check out the original versus the modified version. So there we go, that is installing the FunnyPlaying IPS kit, version 2.2, into the Game Boy Color. All the materials that I bought have been from Retro Modding, and I will drop a link to all the materials that I bought from them to make this kit and to make it possible. And I'll tell you what, it's definitely worth the time and the effort doing this. That screen is absolutely phenomenal. It makes playing this game or any game on this so much more enjoyable. And with it being a larger screen, so much easier to see. So the last thing for me to do is to put the included sticker on the back to make it look official, and I am done and dusted. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this, please drop me a like and a comment below and subscribe to the channel. It helps out immensely. Until next time, happy modding.